This is a part of a series of 3 to do with sound, how sounds affect our well-being and our mind. We interact with the world around us. We need to interact. The interaction with the world we live in is a part of life. We have to breathe in, inhale, and exhale. We need air. We interact every moment with the world around us. We also usually have sound interacting with us. And we also, for example, me now, I'm speaking words, I'm making the sound, can go A, B, F, G, whatever you want, but I'm vocalizing sound. Some are high, some are low, and so we make sound. So when I am making sound, pronouncing letters or mumbling or hello, boat, dog, money, God, monkey, and so on, I'm making sound. So sound that's made, as I said, through my vocal cords, biovocal cords, is a phonetic sound. And a sound, that example, is made through my cymbal and this clapper. So that's a sound made through objects. So traditionally in grammar we talk about objects, objective reality, and then a subjective reality, which is to do with humans. Objective world and the subjective world. So sounds and how they affect our mind. When we hear a sound, we can either respond or not respond, but if it's auditory and we're consciously or subconsciously aware of the sound has been received by us, emitted by something, and received by us. So we are conscious or unconsciously listening into sound. We tune in to the vibration, because sound is a pressure wave. It's what's called a mechanical wave. And I should say that a mechanical wave is, think of a machine, think of objects, a couple of objects, something that has been made through force, bells, whatever. And a mechanical wave is something that is made through a collision of objects. Whereas, for example, the way my radio will transfer the signal, or receive a signal and broadcast, that is not a mechanical wave. That's called an electromagnetic wave. Similarly, if I have my mobile here and I want to receive, or I receive a call or send a photograph to another side of the world, to say Timbuktu, then I'm using the electromagnetic, it's an electromagnetic wave which includes light. Light is an electromagnetic wave. It's not a mechanical wave. Without going too much into science right now, a mechanical wave needs a medium, something to travel through. So, for example, air or water or paper. But mechanical wave needs something to travel through, and a electromagnetic wave can travel in a vacuum through nothing. It's a great idea, but we won't go into it here, although I'd love to talk about electromagnetic waves, but we're talking about mechanical waves. Sound is a mechanical wave. We've established in the other two parts of this podcast that sounds travel as frequencies, and it's caused by the sound that's emitted is caused by the vibrations of objects in the space in terms of vocalizing sound rather than making sound with striking two objects or plucking the string of a guitar. We have two vocal cords, and these vocal cords are manipulated using muscles in the larynx. The voice box is called, or the Adam's apple. The Adam's apple and the two vocal cords there, similar to like a two-stringed guitar. Two vocal cords. And then the way we push air through these vocal cords, and the speed with which air, the force of the air, the weakness of the air, we drive air through our lungs, goes through these two vocal cords which vibrate. They vibrate with the air in my mouth and emit sounds. So think of these two chords like a guitar, or if you're knowledgeable about musical instruments, you could have an old Greek lute, which only had two chords, similar here. Now, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to breathe without making a sound. You might want to call it meditation, but I'm using it to express this idea. So if I breathe in and out, I'm emitting those sounds. So I can breathe in and out without making sounds. I'm not using these vocal cords. Now, if I breathe in heavily in and out, can you hear the deep breathing? You can hear that because the force of the air, even though I'm not really manipulating the sound, the force of the air traveling through my mouth and out is reverberating. So can you hear that? It's called so it emits a sound, the sound of a sigh. But to make the letter B, that's called a labial, because I'm using this part of my mouth, called a labial B. Or if I want to make the letter K, I'm using a guttural K, because I'm making the sound the back of my throat, called a guttural. And if I want to make a D, it's called a frictive, because I'm using my tongue. Duh. You see my mouth is open. Duh. But with a B, it's called a labial, because these are lips, my mouth is shut. Buh. And then most vowels, A, E, I, O, U, they don't involve much manipulation of the mouth or muscles. So if you look, if I go A, I, O, U, I can form them all just with one flow of sound. A, I, O, U, You see that? So the consonants, the b, k, d, l, m, n, x, z, they all need a manipulation of the sound. So our voice box makes us to make sound, and then the pressure we drive up, remember the muscles around our ribs, around each individual rib, the muscles constrict, and our lungs, it makes the lungs expand. When the muscles constrict around the ribs, ironically, it allows us to breathe in and take the air, and it's that air we need to use to make sounds, to form words. If I close my mouth, I can't enunciate any words, I can't form any words, I can't form any letters or any phonemes. So to vocalize sound, this is all what's called phonetics. Phonetics is when animals and humans use their voice boxes to make sound, rather than the mechanical. This is also mechanical sound. No machine there, but it's called a mechanical sound. And of course, striking two objects is also to do with sound, and but not phonetics, because phonetics relates to speech. So we make sounds, and sounds we receive. Now sounds can affect the way we perceive the world around us. Remember what I said, we interact with the world around us. And so if I hear a calm sound, say the sea, the sound of waves, sound of water, sound of birds, sounds of things that are generally considered to be calming, or music, or even the rhythm of a washing machine going around. So it can be calming. They will cause, as I explained in my other podcast, the pressure wave will reach our outer ear, it'll be twisted, bound by the concha, the helix, will spin that sound to the eardrum. The drum will resonate, hit three bones in the middle ear, they will oscillate, and they will generate and amplify the sound. The sound will then hit a second drum at the back, which is like a thin layer of film, and that will go into the cochlea, which is the inner part of the inner ear, which is a giant spiral, which then receives the different highs and low pressures of the sound, which turns that into a nervous impulse, which travels down the auditory nerve. Basically the sound gets turned into a nerve, and the nerve then goes into our mind. Now here we go. So we receive the sound we react to sound. So remember that your mind, the goings on of your mind is controlled through nerves, your nerves. It's a neural network. Neuron is a slightly more scientific word for nerve. So the neural reaction. So we're talking about harmonic, relaxing, soothing sounds. Right. I have this aperitif. It looks like an odd drink, but it's actually a digestive. They call it digestif from Italy, and it's just like a Campari without any alcohol. So I'm allowed to have a quick slug of this. It's refreshing. So the nervous system and body is composed of the somatic nervous system. So sense, to touch, I feel that wood, the weight, I feel the objects. That is a sensory signal that travels up through my body, and I receive and interpret a sensory signal, okay? My mind. to lift it up, to interact, I lift it up. That's a motor neural response, a motor neural. Because actually to lift something up or do something is sending out an action signal. A receiving signal is called a sensory input and a sensory nervous response. A lot of our nerves are both involve sensory and a motor sensory action. So I pick up that wood, it's not hot, I can feel it's not hot, I feel it's smooth, and I lift it up. So I'm receiving information and actualizing information by lifting that up. So, in the same way, when we hear sound, we receive that information. Now, this is called somatic nervous system, okay, the physical one. There's another part of your nervous system, which is called the, bear with me, the involuntary nervous system, okay, the involuntary nervous system. It's called involuntary nervous system because unlike that, it doesn't involve a conscious action. It goes in the realm of your subconscious mind. So the involuntary nervous system itself is divided into two parts. Bear with me on these names. It's divided into A and B. Now, A is called the parasympathetic nervous system. Just call it A if you want. Now that allows our body to breathe, it allows our heart to beat, it allows us to digest food, to go to the toilet, you may want to call it bathroom. It allows our cells to operate. You know, we don't consciously breathe normally. We don't consciously drive our heart. We don't consciously digest our food. These are processes that go in the background, but they're driven by nerves. This is all part of the voluntary, the sympathetic nervous system. Okay? Good so far. These processes are all going on, driven by nerves. Now, the B side, the other side of the involuntary nervous system is called the parasympathetic nervous system. So A is called the sympathetic nervous system, which I've talked about, digestion, immune system, you know, heartbeat. The parasympathetic nervous system is to do with reacting to the world in terms of anxiety, stress, engaging, fighting, running, the fight or flight or freeze response. When there's danger, when we need to react, to do something. And that's called, this is called the other side is called the parasympathetic nervous system. So if we sense a threat, it triggers our parasympathetic nervous system. If we perceive no threat, it also triggers our parasympathetic nervous system, but that allows our bodies to calm down. I think I made just a mistake there actually. The parasympathetic nervous system is to do with the fight or flight or attack or work or do response, a nervous, agitated response. But the sympathetic nervous system is to do with the calm and the quiet, relaxed state. Now when you're relaxed and calm, your heartbeat slows down, you digest your food, you are engaged in restoring your body, you are rest. So the parasympathetic nervous system is about the active, engaged states, the defending yourself, the fight, the flight, the response that we have to the world that we live in on an everyday environment. Whether it's getting on a train, making a telephone call to someone we don't want to, whether it's doing a job that we need to do. Now, they're conscious, but often we are driven by things ongoing in the background, the sense of needing to do something, the obligation, the feeling of having to do something in a particular way. It's called the parasympathetic nervous system, and when we're relaxed and calm, and we return to this relaxed state of being, it's called our sympathetic nervous system. They're both unconscious events, rather than, say, the conscious event of, say, lifting up this clapper stick, or lifting up the bell, or striking something, or doing something like that. They're conscious decisions, but the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system is an involuntary, unconscious event going on. Where am I coming from? Right. So if you hear sounds that are relaxing and calm, music, melody, birds, nature, whatever it is, your body goes into the relaxed state of being, normally. But if you hear aggressive sounds, like this banging there, like, what is it doing? It's like you want to engage in it. If you hear a lion roar, or you hear sounds that are threatening, or you see a lion and it growls, the sound can trigger the parasympathetic nervous system to react. So sounds can trigger our reactive fight, freeze, flight response. So these sounds can affect our mind, our well-being, our psychology. Unwanted sounds. This is an unwanted sound beyond the area that I can control. So I can either become upset and irritated, or I can be patient and realize that at the end of the day it's not a big event that's going to affect my overall well-being. And like most things in life, the sound will pass. See, that would be called an irritating sound. That would be called an extremely irritating sound. It bangs on further. I will pause this podcast just for 1 second. So that kind of sound causes me to react. It causes me to become aggressive or frustrated. It can. And an unwanted sound can cause this hormonal cascade. It makes my I'm going to pause this podcast just for 1 second. I'll be right back.